I never imagined I'd let anyone see me like that. Bare, trembling, half-drenched in sweat, my blouse clinging to my skin, and my lips parted in a moan I couldn't silence. But what shocked me more than the act itself was who saw me, he stood there frozen in the doorway, his eyes wide, mouth slightly open, holding his breath like he had just walked in on a crime. And maybe he had. Maybe what I did was a crime, not legally, but emotionally. A betrayal that can't be undone. I should have stopped. I should have covered myself, screamed, run, anything but what I actually did. I met his eyes, and I didn't move. In that moment, I made a choice I can't take back. I let him look. I wanted him to. And the worst part? I've never felt more alive than in that split second of complete, naked honesty. I'm 32, married for 8 years. No kids, by choice mostly. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I did everything right. I married the safe man, the solid man. Matthew is dependable, responsible, loyal to a fault. He remembers to change the oil, pays the mortgage early, brings home flowers every other Friday because he read in some article that consistency matters in marriage. And I suppose it does. But there's a difference between consistency and passion, between comfort and connection. I used to think love was a quiet thing, steady, mature, that butterflies were for teenagers and movie scripts. So when the spark began to fade with Matthew, I told myself that was normal, that maybe it was even good, healthy even, that we didn't need constant sex or deep conversations to prove our love. But then, silence started to take up space in the rooms between us. Not angry silence, just the kind that stretches too long during dinner, or hums faintly under the television when you're not really watching. The kind of silence that makes you feel invisible. He still kissed me goodbye, every morning. But I started noticing he didn't look at me anymore, not really. When we had sex, it was more like checking off a box than exploring each other. Predictable, efficient, done in 15 minutes, with me faking an orgasm more often than not just to avoid awkwardness. I missed being wanted, craved, looked at, like I was the answer to an unspoken question. But how do you tell a good man you're starving when he thinks he's feeding you? So I smiled. I worked, I went to the gym, I made dinner, paid bills, pretended. I told myself I was lucky. That women in worse marriages would kill for a man like Matthew. And I guess that's true. But love without touch feels like winter with no end, and sex without intimacy feels like sleeping with a ghost. I wasn't looking for someone else. I swear I wasn't. But when someone finally sees you after years of being invisible, it does something to you, something you can't easily undo. His name was Jason. He wasn't supposed to mean anything, just a friend of Matthew's younger cousin, passing through town and needing a place to crash for a weekend while visiting family. We had the guest room, and Matthew, ever the nice guy, offered it up without blinking. "He's harmless," he said. "You'll like him. He's funny." He was more than funny. Jason walked in on a Thursday evening with a duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a quiet confidence that felt like a slow exhale. He was 30, tall, with a body that looked like it had been built through years of hard, casual labor, defined but not obsessed over. His eyes were a kind of blue I didn't know how to name, something between ocean and storm. And when he looked at me, really looked at me, it felt like he already knew what I tried to hide. He shook my hand, his touch warm and firm, and held it just a beat too long. "You must be the famous wife," he said, flashing a grin that managed to be both teasing and respectful. I laughed, brushing it off, but I felt my face flush. That night at dinner, the three of us sat around the table drinking wine and swapping stories. Jason was sharp, quick-witted, the kind of man who knew how to listen as much as he talked. Matthew laughed more than I'd heard in weeks, but it was Jason's eyes I felt on me, subtle glances across the table, the occasional flicker of interest when I spoke. Not overt, but not accidental either. After Matthew went to bed early for a work call in the morning, Jason and I lingered in the kitchen. I pretended to clean up. He leaned against the counter, sipping the last of his wine. You always this put together? He asked, his tone low, almost lazy. I paused. I'm not sure if that's a compliment or a warning. It's both, he said, smiling. You wear restraint like a dress, beautiful, but tight. I didn't know what to say. My pulse was loud in my ears. The next day, things got worse, or better, depending on how you look at it. I caught him watching me from the hallway while I folded laundry in my tank top and leggings. His eyes swept over me, slow and deliberate, but he said nothing. Later, when I handed him a towel after his shower, our fingers brushed. That tiny, insignificant touch sent a spark up my arm so fast it made me dizzy. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. It was little things after that. The way he stood just a bit too close when we talked. The sound of his voice when he said my name. How his gaze dipped when I wore something casual and fitted, like he couldn't help himself. But it was the talking that undid me. Jason had a way of asking questions that slipped past my defenses. About my life, my work, my dreams. Things Matthew hadn't asked in years, or maybe never had. One night, after Matthew had gone to sleep, we ended up on the back patio, the air warm and thick, the world hushed. You happy? Jason asked suddenly, like the words had been building up inside him. I looked at him, startled. What kind of question is that? An honest one, he said, eyes on me. You laugh, but it never reaches your eyes. That was the moment. I knew I was in trouble, because he saw me. And once someone sees you, you start to feel exposed even when fully clothed. You start waiting for the next glance, the next accidental brush, the next conversation that veers too close to the truth. One night I walked into the kitchen and found him shirtless, digging through the fridge. His back was to me, muscles shifting under his skin like waves. He turned when he heard me, water bottle in hand, a soft smirk on his face. Couldn't sleep? He asked. No, I whispered. You? He shook his head. Too quiet. He handed me the bottle, his fingers grazing mine again, and for a long second we just stood there, breathing, staring. He leaned in slightly like a question not yet asked. I stepped back, barely. But he understood. He didn't push, just nodded, a flicker of something unreadable in his expression. And yet, that night, I lay in bed aching. Not just between my legs, but somewhere deeper, a place that hadn't been touched in years. Desire isn't always about sex. Sometimes, it's about being noticed, felt, known. Jason left after the weekend, as planned, but he came back 2 weeks later. Just passing through again, he said. Matthew was thrilled. You're always welcome here, man, he said, clapping him on the back. I didn't say a word, but when Jason looked at me across the living room and our eyes locked, I felt it like a slow burn in my chest. This time, something had shifted. Was no longer afraid of what might happen. I was afraid of what wouldn't. It happened on a Thursday night. Matthew was away on a 3-day work trip, some conference out of state. Jason had stopped by again that afternoon, under the pretense of picking up a pair of headphones he'd left behind on his last visit. I should have known better than to invite him in, but I did. I told myself it was harmless. 5 minutes. Just a quick hello. We ended up talking for hours. We sat in the living room, the lights dim, a bottle of wine between us that kept refilling itself. The air grew thick, not just with alcohol, but with something heavier. Unspoken. Dangerous. Every time our eyes met, the room felt smaller, warmer, like the space between us was shrinking on its own. I don't remember the exact words that led us there. Just fragments. You ever think about what you're missing? What if you didn't have to pretend? You deserve to feel. The moment happened so quietly, I almost missed it. He reached out slowly and tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers grazed my cheek, lingered along my jawline. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't stop him. Maybe I couldn't. "Tell me to leave," he whispered. I didn't. He leaned in, lips brushing mine. Not a kiss, just a question hovering between us. My whole body trembled. My chest ached with want and shame and something I couldn't name. I kissed him first. It was soft, tentative. My lips barely parted. But the moment they did, something inside me cracked wide open. He pulled me in, gently but with purpose, like he'd been waiting for this. His hands cupped my face as his mouth moved over mine, slow and deep, like he needed to taste every part of me. And I let him. I melted into the kiss like I'd been starving for it. My body came alive in ways I didn't know it could anymore. Every nerve felt electric, my skin hypersensitive to even the smallest touch. Jason's hands moved down my arms, across my waist like he was mapping me. His thumbs traced the hem of my shirt before slipping underneath, fingers brushing my bare skin. I gasped against his mouth, half from shock, half from want. He pulled back, looking at me. "Are you sure?" No one had asked me that in years. Nodded. Not because I was sure of anything, but because I was sure of this. Of him. Of the moment. We didn't rush. That's what surprised me most. He undressed me like I was sacred, peeling away each layer with reverence. His hands moved over my body like they were learning a language. I felt worshipped. Beautiful. Seen. When he slid my bra straps down, he paused, kissing the slope of my shoulder with a tenderness that made my throat tighten. Then his mouth moved lower, lips brushing my collarbone, the valley of my breasts. He took his time like he wasn't in a hurry to get to the end. No one had touched me like that in years. Like every part of me mattered. I lay back on the couch, breathless, as he knelt beside me. His hands slid down my thighs, parting them gently. His mouth followed, hot and unrelenting, until I was arching, gasping, clutching at the cushions. With white-knuckled fists, he knew exactly what to do, how to listen to my body, when to be soft, and when not to be. I came undone beneath him, not just physically, but emotionally. It felt like years of silence breaking inside me. I cried out, not from pain, but from release, from finally being felt. And still, he wasn't done. He carried me upstairs, my body limp, my heart pounding. We fell onto the bed, tangled in sheets and breath and limbs. When he entered me, it wasn't a thrust. It was a joining, a deep, slow slide that made my entire body hum. He held my gaze as he moved, steady, deep, present in a way that Matthew never was. Not because Matthew didn't care, but because Jason knew. He knew where to put his hands, when to pause, how to read the tremble in my thighs or the way my breath hitched just before I fell apart. It wasn't just sex. It was something else. Something raw. I wrapped my legs around him, anchoring myself to the moment, and whispered his name like a confession. My nails raked down his back. He moaned into my neck. We moved together, wave after wave, until I shattered a second time, this one deeper, louder, messier. After, we lay tangled in silence, sweat cooling on our skin. His fingers traced circles on my hip as my head rested on his chest. "I've never," I started, then stopped. "I know," he said softly. "Me neither." I wanted to cry, from guilt, from joy, from the terrifying truth that I had just crossed a line I couldn't uncross. I cheated on my husband. I wanted to cheat on him. And I didn't feel regret. Not then. I felt alive. Jason kissed my forehead, his hand slipping into mine. I stared at the ceiling, my heart thudding hard and slow. In the dim light of our bedroom, the one I shared with Matthew, I felt the weight of everything. The betrayal, the ecstasy, the terrifying realization that I could never go back to what I had before. That something inside me had been awakened, and it refused to sleep again. I turned to Jason and whispered, "What now?" He didn't answer. Because there wasn't one. Not yet. The morning after, I woke to sunlight streaming through the blinds and the weight of Jason's arm draped over my waist. His breath was warm on the back of my neck. My body ached in places I hadn't felt in years. Not from pain, but from being used in the best way, touched, explored, known, but my chest felt hollow. I slid out of bed carefully, quietly, my legs still weak, my thoughts even weaker. As I stood in the mirror, naked and messy-haired, I couldn't decide if I looked like a woman reborn or ruined. Jason stirred. "Hey," he said, voice rough with sleep. "You okay?" I nodded, too quickly. "Yeah, I need to shower." The hot water scalded my skin. I scrubbed hard as if guilt could be rinsed off with soap. But nothing changed. My body still remembered him. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his mouth on me, felt his hands, heard the sounds I made. And beneath the guilt, buried like a secret, was a flicker of satisfaction. Matthew came home the next night. He walked in smiling, kissed my cheek, told me the trip was boring and he missed my cooking. I smiled back. I laughed in the right places. I even curled into his side on the couch like I used to. But something had shifted. He didn't notice. We had sex that night. He initiated it, which was rare, and I didn't say no. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to try. To see if maybe I could pretend nothing had happened. That I hadn't betrayed him in our bed less than 48 hours earlier. But as he moved inside me, clumsy, predictable, tender in that familiar, distant way, I felt my throat tighten, my eyes blurred. He didn't look at me. Not really. His eyes stayed closed. His hand on my hip was functional, not craving. He kissed my neck like he was ticking off a step. I didn't come. He didn't notice. After, he rolled over and said, "Love you, babe," like he always did. I stared at the ceiling, heart pounding, body untouched in every way that mattered. I whispered, "Love you too," and hated myself for it. The guilt didn't hit all at once. It came in waves. Some days I hated Jason for what we did. Other days, I missed him like oxygen. I'd open the laundry cabinet and smell his cologne still clinging to a towel. Or I'd catch my reflection while getting dressed and remember how his eyes devoured me, how he touched me like I was something to be cherished, not maintained. With Matthew, everything felt routine, expected, safe. With Jason, I felt alive. That was the worst part. Not that I cheated, not even the lies. It was that I didn't regret it. I regretted what it meant, the gap it exposed, the emptiness I could no longer pretend wasn't there. But the night itself, the way he kissed me, the way I fell apart in his arms, no, I didn't regret that. I started pulling away from Matthew without meaning to. I stopped asking about his day, stopped laughing at his jokes. I kissed him on the cheek instead of the lips. He didn't question it. Maybe he thought I was tired, or hormonal, or just distant. And maybe I was. I had become two women. One who made dinner and paid bills and went through the motions of a quiet, decent life. And one who had screamed Jason's name into a pillow she shared with her husband. I felt like a stranger in my own skin. I kept waiting for the guilt to eat me alive, for it to crack me open. But it didn't. What did, though, was the numbness that followed. The silence at dinner. The way Matthew's hand on mine now felt foreign, cold. The way my body no longer reacted to his touch. Like something had been switched off. Or maybe something had finally been switched on, and it was too late to go back. I still didn't know what to do. Whether to tell him, to confess, to leave, to beg for something we both knew we'd lost long before Jason ever stepped foot into our house. I didn't have answers, only truths. And one truth I couldn't shake was this. For one night, I had felt truly alive, wanted, consumed, and I would never be able to unfeel that. Even if I never saw Jason again. Even if I spent the rest of my life pretending it never happened. Some part of me, quiet and hidden, would always remember. I didn't see Jason again. Not because I didn't want to. God, I did. Every inch of me ached for him for weeks. I replayed that night like a song stuck in my head. His hands, his voice, the way he made me feel like I was more than just someone's wife, someone's habit. He didn't reach out, and I didn't either. Maybe we both knew that if we touched that flame again, we'd burn down everything. But I thought about him. Every single day. I started taking long walks after dinner. Told Matthew I needed fresh air. Really, I needed space. To breathe. To not lie beside him with a hollow ache in my chest. He remained kind, consistent, unaware. The way he kissed me goodnight, soft and familiar, made my stomach twist. It wasn't his fault. He hadn't changed. I had. The worst part was how well we still worked on paper. We never screamed. We still split chores. We still had Sunday pancakes and shared playlists. But the intimacy, the soul of us, was long gone. I had spent years confusing quiet love with deep love. But quiet love can sometimes be just loneliness, dressed up nicely. I didn't leave him. Not yet. I didn't cheat again either. Not physically. But in my mind, I was somewhere else, with someone else. My body stayed in our home, but my heart wandered every time I caught the scent of cologne on a stranger or heard a voice that resembled Jason's. It was torture. And yet, it reminded me I was still awake. One night, after Matthew had fallen, asleep, I sat in the dark with my journal open, pen trembling in my hand. I wrote one sentence. I don't know if I love him anymore, or if I ever truly did. The truth sat there like a wound. I didn't want to be the villain. I didn't want to be the woman who broke vows, who wrecked a good man's life. But I was also tired of being the woman who betrayed herself just to keep peace, to play the part, to stay nice and quiet in a house built on routine instead of passion. I still don't know what I'll do. Maybe I'll stay, try to rebuild something real. Maybe I'll leave gently, without drama, and finally search for the version of myself that doesn't flinch when someone touches her. Maybe I'll meet someone who makes me feel again, without shame. Or maybe I'll just keep walking at night, whispering apologies into the wind and hoping the woman I was that night, naked, gasping, and truly seen, wasn't just a ghost. All I know is this. Once you taste something that makes you feel alive, you can't go back to pretending you're not dying. Even if no one else notices you fading, you do.